On June 1st, 2022, U.S. Secretary Janet Yellen admitted that she was wrong about inflation. Yellen said that she didn't fully understand the risks as consumer prices have lingered at record highs since late 2021. Exactly what you want to hear from the managers of your country's money. What everyone, except the leader of the U.S. Treasury, seems to know is that inflation is taking a toll on the American economy, with everything from gas to groceries setting a steep price increase. Now, if you're Janet Yellen, you're going to blame the war in Ukraine, the ongoing lockdowns in China, and new strains of COVID that have further affected supply chain. But if you're a Renegade member, you know that there's a lot more to this story. But as it's pretty much the global organized event, there's very little anyone can do to escape the damage of inflation. The second best thing is to try and buffer yourself and your business against it. So today on Renegade News, that's exactly what we're getting into. Welcome back to Renegade News. I'm your host, Glenn Kowalski. Every week on this channel, we discuss the latest news, strategies, and tactics for breaking free from the system, paying less tax, and living anywhere in the world that you want. So, inflation attacks small businesses in a number of different ways. First of all, it gives you less purchasing power, so things like raw materials, inventory, and equipment all become much more expensive. It also causes your fuel costs to be higher, which is going to have an impact on all your shipping costs and all your costs along the way. Now, along with the supply chain issues that are already going on, goods are likely to take a lot longer to arrive to you than what you're used to as well, compounding all these problems on top of each other. There's also a higher cost of labor. So because of the higher cost of living, there's going to be an increase in the cost of the income needs of your workforce. People aren't going to be able to work for as cheap if they can't afford to pay their rent. And this often leads to prospective employees negotiating for these higher salaries. There's also a higher cost of borrowing money. So existing business debt is technically cheaper. However, taking on any new debt is going to become a lot more expensive as central banks increase the interest rates to cool down the inflation. There's also these increased costs across the board that can have a substantial impact on your cash flow, particularly for small businesses that are a lot less likely to have this sizable financial buffer in terms of working capital. Where the big corporations like Microsoft have billions of dollars in the bank, small businesses don't likely have that. So before we dive into some of the ways that we can tackle this inflation, I just want to let you know that we're creating a movement of entrepreneurs and investors who are sick of the systems and the state taking more and more of their working capital and giving them more and more rules and regulations to live by in return. So check out the link in the first pinned comment to discover more about this completely free community and how it can help you find more freedom and more independence in this unfree world. Now, there's very little that we as individuals can do to avoid the cost of inflation and what's going on at the cash registers. But the legendary investor Warren Buffett says that people can make certain moves that will protect against its effects. Now, you probably know that I am not a Warren Buffett fan, and what he says about cryptocurrency is total bullshit, but he does make some good points. And this is important anytime, but it's especially important right now with the high inflation going on, is to invest in yourself. And it's the best that you can do is to become exceptionally good at something. You want to sharpen your skills and you want to work to be at the top of your field. Skills, unlike currency, are inflation proof. If you have a skill that's in demand, it's going to remain in demand no matter what the dollar is worth. Like we talked about earlier, if you have skills, you can demand more for those skills as the dollar goes up. So whatever abilities you have, they can't be taken away from you. And they can't actually be inflated away from you either. So the best investment is by far anything that develops yourself and your skills. And the best part about it is those aren't taxed at all. The next thing you can do is invest in what Warren Buffett calls a wonderful business. And a wonderful business makes products that are in demand regardless of the performance of the dollar, regardless of the economy, regardless of inflation. Buffett uses a company like Coca-Cola as an example. He says that people are still going to want this soda decades from now. And inflation is going to play very little in that role in their decision. No matter how much inflation there are, people are going to want to still buy Coke. So if you own the Coca-Cola company, you are going to be given a portion of people's labor 20 years from now and 50 years from now. And your product is going to increase in value with the inflation, and it's not going to make any difference what happens to the price levels because people are still going to pay for the products that they like. In some of our upcoming videos, we're going to talk about some of these wonderful business ideas and things that are needing to be started in this type of recession and some of the best businesses in the new economy that we're going to move into. The next thing the Buffett says is you're going to want to buffer your business against that inflation. So number one is to avoid going into debt. This is vital all the time, in my opinion, but especially important as we go into a poor economy, as we go into this inflation and in hyperinflation cycle. Debt is a prison. And if you don't have any debt, you can survive a lot. I mean, shit, you can survive on fish and mangoes if you live someplace warm enough to do that. If you don't have debt, you have choices, you have control, you have things you can do. But if you are in debt and everything starts to collapse around you, you truly are screwed. You lose this complete control over your life. So as times like this happen and things get a little bit tough in business, it's really tempting for you to go get another business credit card or increase your business line of credit. But you really want to try to avoid this pit at all costs, especially at times like this, when we're in times of inflation and we're looking at a possible recession. Next, you have to look after your business's financial health. Again, this is something that's important anytime, but in times like this, it becomes vital. When the economic times are challenging like this, it's important to do whatever you can do to keep a handle on your small business financial health. You need to examine all your processes. You need to reassess and update things where it's needed. The rising costs that are caused by inflation are naturally worrying, but there are a number of measures that you can take to lessen the impact that it has on your business, and planning ahead is the key to being able to do that. So for starters, you want to update your budget. So while this inflation can be unpredictable, of course, you can still update your budget to avoid too many shocks when it happens. And even though prices may be higher, you can still get ahead with bigger projects that you have on your radar right now. There is no law that says you can't raise your prices. Big companies do it all the time, and so can you. And while it may not be a popular choice, examining your pricing could well protect your small business from this rising inflation by doing the same. A huge hike could, of course, do more harm than good if your customers who are likely feeling those rising costs. But if you can do it gradually, it's probably something that's going to be necessary, particularly if your profit margins are on the narrow side of your business or your business is teetering near these negative earnings. Next, you want to maintain timely revenue. You want revenue coming in all the time. We've already mentioned that small businesses are less likely than big corporations to have so much cash in the bank that the day-to-day impact of the rising inflation isn't going to be an issue. So to keep the value of your working capital healthy, keep a close eye on your accounts receivable and make sure that you're receiving those payments in a timely manner. In times of inflation, if somebody owes you $100, if they don't pay you for 3 months, that $100 is only worth $70 to you when they finally pay you. You have to get those accounts receivable paid when they're due so that you can invest in things that are going to raise in value with the inflation. You also want to maintain your customer relationship because that's going to be crucial for continued and repeated business success. But you have to bear in mind that your receivables can be instrumental in keeping your business operations on an even keel while you're doing that. Surviving what's coming is going to take some specific strategies in your business, in your investing, and in your self-sufficiency. And if you rely on the system, you're going to go down with that sinking ship. But if you learn to be independent, this can be one of the biggest opportunities of our lifetime. Discover more about breaking free from the system and creating more personal, financial, and location independence by tuning into Renegade News and Renegade News Live on a regular basis. Subscribe and hit the notification button right now so you never miss an episode. And watch our latest upload, which is on the screen right now, for the latest in cryptocurrency, precious metals, international real estate, business, entrepreneurship, investing, and more. I'm your host, Glenn Kowalski, and I'll see you over there.